Hey everybody, Alan Arnett here with another podcast and a blog on alanarnett.com. It is Sunday, March 29th, 2026, and the Everseen is taking shape. There's lots of teams already in the Khumbu right now. For example, climbing the seven summits, they've got trekkers and climbers. Adventure Consultants, they have a trekking team going in at the moment, and other teams are getting ready to fly over to Kathmandu to begin their Everest 2026 spring season. The Nepalese Ministry of Tourism has already begun issuing permits for multiple countries. Something like 82 people already have permits, but it's so early right now. I expect that number to go up to probably 700 or 800, maybe even 1,000 for all of the mountains in Nepal this spring season. And as I've said in previous podcasts and on my blog, that I'm expecting somewhere between 800 to 1,000 total summits. So that's both Sherpas, support climbers, and clients or members. So it's going to be a busy season. There's no doubt about that. There's also teams at Annapurna and the Dhaulagiri base camp. I know everybody likes the way I say Dhaulagiri, but that's the way it is. So I have fun with it. Come on, guys. But let's look at this time. This podcast is going to be pretty quick because I'm just going to go through a few of the people that I'm kind of following that are kind of interesting as opposed to all the other people. You know, everybody's interesting in their own right, especially to their own families and for themselves. So it's not a judgment that other people that I don't mention them, but you know, clearly I cannot mention 4, 5, 600 individual people across all the various mountains. But there are a few ones that are kind of interesting that we'll be keeping an eye on this season. I recently published a blog, maybe 5 or 6 days ago, that goes through all of this. So if you don't want to hear this, you can go and read it very quickly. It's about a 4-minute read. So first off, there's several people actually climbing or attempting to climb on the southeast ridge without using supplemental oxygen this year. That trend seems to be picking up. It used to be that hardly anybody did it, but now we're finding 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 people each season attempting it, and about I don't know, 10 or 20% actually make it. It is incredibly hard to go to 9,000 meters, almost 29,000 feet, without using supplemental oxygen. You have to be genetically gifted, someone like an Ed Viesturs or a Reinhold Messner or Julian Gournay to be able to do that. It's you know, you have to have an incredible cardiovascular system. You also have to have some mental toughness, which is out of this world, to be able to do it. And sadly, the death rate is significantly higher for those people that try to climb it without supplemental oxygen. But a couple of people that I'm keeping an eye on are our favorite son of the mountaineering community, at least in the U.S., and that's our good friend Ryan Mitchell at age 21 with his BFF, Justin Sackett, who's 28. And so they're going to try to climb without O's, without using supplemental oxygen. I've mentioned this several times, but it's worth mentioning again. They're already at Everest Base Camp, here, in late March, which is significantly earlier than anybody else. And that's part of their plan is to get there, to go try to acclimatize on Lobuche East, to get some time in at altitude, take their time, let their body adjust, and then gently go up and down the mountain on the various rotations. And that's a very smart plan to do. The downside is that the longer you spend in that area, the higher the risk of getting sick. And that's the reason that the so-called rapid people or the fast or whatever you want to call them, that, they got more money than time people that want to go do these fast ascents, that they try to get in and out as quick as possible because they don't want to be exposed to the bugs in the Khumbu. So that's the downfall of this strategy, is that they're going to be in that area for a long time. Probably, I don't know, maybe 6, 7 weeks or so. So they're going to have to be very, very aware of self-care. A lot of people go back down to Namche or even Kathmandu before they go to the summit. I hope these guys don't do that, because that's just inviting a whole new rash of bugs that you haven't been exposed to get into your system and develop a bacterial lung infection or worse, even COVID in some cases. So anyway, we're going to be watching Ryan and Justin as they go along. I think they have 1 or 2 two, I think it's two Sherpas that'll be with them, and they'll be carrying emergency oxygen. So I'm not too worried about the guys in the sense of, of their safety, because they're both smart. Justin is extremely talented climber, but the highest he's been has been 22,350 feet on Amanda Blanc. Of course, Ryan summited Everest 2 years ago with Madison Mountaineering, but he used supplemental oxygen that year. So this is going to be a big test for both of them. And we obviously wish them all the best, but most importantly for them to have a safe trip down. Another couple of guys that we're going to be watching is the so-called FNT, fastest known time. And so last year, both of these gentlemen, Carl Elgoff and Tyler Andrews, both attempted to set an FNT on Everest on the Nepal side. But basically, last year was a tough year for winds. Very high winds stopped an awful lot of people. And these guys, they were not using supplemental oxygen. And when you have high winds, that takes the wind chill down to minus 20, 30, 40, 50 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you're not using supplemental oxygen, the main benefit is that it keeps you warm. It keeps your extremities, your hands and your fingers and your nose and your ears warm. And if you're not using it, then you have to move really fast. And that's a contradiction to climbing without using supplemental oxygen, because you typically climb extremely slow. So they're going to have to wait for an absolutely perfect weather window with almost no winds at all, which, is not impossible. It happens occasionally on Everest. Every year I hear about somebody that said, they went and they said, hey, we had an absolutely perfect bluebird day, no winds, clear sky, no cloud, nothing. So it can happen. And so if these guys are patient, then they might get that opportunity. What's a little unique here is that Carl, he's going to try to go from base camp to the summit and back to base camp without using supplemental oxygen. Whereas Tyler is going to climb just from base camp to the summit without using supplemental oxygen. So we'll see how they do. Wish them both, again, best of luck. And most importantly is to be safety. Triples, doubles, and most summits. Kristen Harla, we all remember Kristen from setting the record for sending all 14 of the 8,000ers in the fastest time ever, roughly 6 months or so. This year, she wants to go back and she wants to do the triple. And that's going to be Nuptse, Lhotse, and Everest, the so-called Triple Crown. It's kind of a horseshoe there and all around the Western Cone to get all three of those. And she's going to also do it without using supplemental oxygen. So that'll be an interesting one to watch. It's very rare for somebody to get all three of those. It happens occasionally, but it's pretty rare. But a lot of people get Everest and then they go over to Lhotse for a double. And that's almost become, I won't say common, but every year, probably 20, 30, 40 people are doing that these days, because they go up to the summit of Everest, they summit it on oxygen, and then they come back down to the South Col, they rest up, and then head over to the Lhotse High Camp, which is just above the yellow band, and then they head on up to Lhotse Couloir and summit it from there. So they're leveraging not only their acclimatization, but they're also eliminating, tens of thousands of feet of climbing all the way from base camp back up to Lhotse. A personal opinion is that I think that that should have an asterisk next to it in terms of the summit of Lhotse, if you summit it next to Everest by coming from the South Col. I'd like to see people start at a minimum at Camp 2 to go back up to Lhotse, and ideally from base camp to actually call it a true summit. Hey, but that's just my opinion. Kami Rita Sherpa, Kami Rita was with me on K2 along with Kami from Pengboche, two Kamis. But Kami Rita Sherpa is going to be going for his record 32nd summit. Amazing. Supposedly, he said this is it. He's going to get this one, and that's going to be his last one. He's not guiding anybody. He's just going to go up there and going to climb it for himself, which I think is fantastic. More and more Sherpas we're seeing are just climbing these mountains and other mountains around the world, including the 7 summits, including Antarctica, going to the South Pole, just for the love of mountaineering and exploration and adventure, and not doing it as a job, working for another client. And I think that's fantastic. So good on them for embracing the sport, and getting the benefit of it just for themselves. Also, British climber Kenton Cool, he's going for his 20th summit. And so that if he gets that, he already owns the record for the most non-Sherpa summits with 19. And he's going to add to that this year with number 20. And I have no doubt that he'll get it. Tim Howell, last year he wanted to do a wingsuit jump off of Lhotse, not quite from the summit, but back down a little bit lower so he could get a little bit of clearance and not fly into the rocks, which is always a good idea. But he's going to try it again this year. And British IFMGA guy John Gupta is going to be with him again in support. Hopefully, they'll get a good wind conditions to allow that to happen. So another trend that's going on, we talked about no O's getting more popular these days, the double of Everest and Lhotse becoming more popular. Well, here's another thing that's becoming more popular, and it's for people that are starting from the ocean or their home, like years ago when Goran Kropp did it from, was it Denmark, where he rode his bicycle all the way to Everest Base Camp, and then he climbed it and then came back down and rode his bike back home. He was kind of the first one to set this trend. And this year, there's roughly three people, probably maybe more, but at least three that I know of that are doing it. Australian climber Oliver Foran, he's going to start from the Indian coast. And then he's going to cycle 715 miles from the Indian coast to the foothills of Everest and then trek 93 miles to base camp. And then he's going to climb Mira Peak before getting to Everest Base Camp. So the current world record for doing something like this is held by South Korean national Kim Chang-ho, and Oliver's targeting for 60 days to do this from the Indian coast to the summit of Everest in 60 days. And he's doing this to honor his mom who died from brain cancer and to try to raise money for a charity called U-Turn. I've got all these links on my website, so I'd encourage you to take a look at that. And best of luck to him. Another person that's doing it is Romanian Madeline Crista, aka Chris. Chris. He's 26 years old, and he has this project. And this one actually is incredibly unique. He wants to do the 7 summits, obviously the highest mountain, each one of the 7 continents, and he wants to start at the ocean of that continent and then go to the summit of that mountain. Okay, so last in 2024, he actually did it with Aconcagua and Kilimanjaro. And he spent 2 months doing that, but he summited both peaks sea to sea. In other words, he started at the edge of the continent and he walked or trekked or however he moved on foot, actually. He didn't use cycling or bikes or nothing, walked from the edge of the African continent to the summit of Kilimanjaro and then back down to the ocean. And he did the same thing in South America, going up to the summit of Aconcagua. Well, now he wants to do it for Everest. And he's going to start again off the coast of India, and he's going to cover 1,242 miles over the course of 100 days to get up to the summit. Oh my gosh, that I got to give this guy credit. 26 years old, he is driven and he's got creativity. Just so I wish him also the best of luck. There's a third person that's doing it, and I haven't been able to 100% confirm it because it's a Polish gentleman who also wants to do it from India to summit of Everest, and I'm not sure how he wants to get back down, but he wants to do it without using supplemental oxygen. He also is writing that he wants to do a solo, which everybody knows now it's impossible. I mean, the last person that did a solo was Reinhold Messner on the north side. Now he can do it unsupported, but that means he's still going to be using probably ladders in the ice fall and the fixed ropes, but he can do it without using Sherpa support. But still, solo is probably the incorrect term in this case. But this gentleman, I wish him the best of luck as well. Apparently, he's still trying to raise money to get this thing to happen, but we'll just I'll keep my eye on that and see what happens. Okay, so that's the update about all the people that are kind of the interesting people to watch this year. Everybody is, like I said in the very beginning, they're starting to head into base camp and getting all set. Other people are still at home and they're packing and getting those last final pieces of gear together. Those people that switched from the north to the south because the Chinese inexplicably closed all of their 8,000-meter mountains to climbing this spring. Allegedly, they're going to be open in the fall and hopefully next year. I just signed up a new Summit Coach client to go in next year with Madison Mountaineering, and so we're working, assuming that he'll be able to go there. There's also a lot of new rules that Nepal has put into place, but most of them are part of this Tourism Bill 2081, which has not been fully passed, and that includes the requirement to summit a 7,000-meter mountain in Nepal. Again, that is not applicable for this 2026 season, and it still has to go through the lower house chamber of their equivalent of Congress, and then the president has to sign it. But then it has to be enforced. So really, we don't know where that one stands. A couple of the other ones, though, that looks like they have been put in place is that you're going to have to be using WAG bags, using these bags to carry down your solid human waste, and you're going to have to use bags which are provided by the Sagarmatha Pollution Control Committee, the SPCC. And I'm not quite sure I understand the rationale behind that because a WAG bag is a WAG bag is a WAG bag, but I think they just want to make sure that everybody has them, which is a good thing. This is a really good thing. They've also instituted a rule that you have to bring down 2 kilograms of waste, non-human waste. In other words, something like cans or oxygen bottle or a trash from above Camp 2, in addition to 8 kilograms at the end of the expedition, and it doesn't matter where that came from, as long as it's not from base camp. So these are good things to do, trying to clean up the mountain and help everybody be a little bit more responsible about leaving no trace. The other one that's getting a little publicity is that now the icefall doctors are requiring that everybody pays $600 each climber to go through the icefall. It has to pay for the salary of the icefall doctors plus all the equipment, the ladders, the ice screws, the webbing, all that stuff, the rope. But in reality, climbers have always had to pay, but it's just been buried in the permit. It's been buried in the fees that the guide companies charge. But once again, it's getting all this press, like this is something brand new, that's never been done before. It's been done before. It just hasn't been broken out quite like this. So that's about it, guys. We'll watch it and things will start to pick up as we move into April. As always, I appreciate you following and climb on. This is Alan. Memories are everything.
The podcast on AlanArnett.com is sponsored by Summit Coach, helping aspiring climbers worldwide to reach their dreams.